Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is the m3-8100Y Yoga, which is a tiny little device that is actually a laptop computer. It has a 7-inch touchscreen display. It's full HD, 1920 by 1200 pixels. And there's a fingerprint sensor here, which is one of the improvements over the original m3-Yoga. It makes it quick and easy to log in, which is handy when you don't necessarily want to have to deal with this tiny, tiny keyboard for typing out passwords and pins. It's a convertible device, which means that you can flip the screen all the way over backwards and hold it like a tablet. And you can switch windows into tablet mode if you want a sort of more tablet-friendly user interface as well. Or you can turn that back off and go back to a more desktop-like experience. So with a 7-inch screen and this small keyboard, it's basically capable of doing most of the things that you could do with a laptop computer, but it does it in a device that's not that much larger than a smartphone. So here's a Google Pixel 2 smartphone with a 5-inch screen, relatively small by modern phone standards. In fact, you can fit this into a pocket. Not all pockets, but say men's jeans pockets. I can actually slide it into most of my jeans pockets, not necessarily pants with smaller pockets, not necessarily a suit pocket. Weighs about 1 pound 3 ounces, and so it's a relatively lightweight portable device that you can take with you places where you might not know if you need a laptop, and it's easy to just sort of carry with you. There are other devices like the Surface line of tablets, which are relatively small, compact, but they're not as, and while they might even be thinner than this, which is about 2/3 of an inch thick, they're not necessarily going to be paperback book size like this is. This is even smaller maybe than a paperback book, maybe a little bit heavier though. So its appeal, I think, really is in the portability. 7-inch screens are not entirely new. We saw them about 10 years ago with the advent of the netbook. So the Asus EPC, the original version, actually had a 7-inch screen, but it was a much larger device due to much larger bezels. Now we've seen display technology and all sorts of other things really come a long way, so that we can get these smaller screens. Now, if you've been following my YouTube channel or Liliputing.com for a while, you're probably aware this is not the first device like this that we've seen. This is the m3-2S Yoga. It follows the m3-Yoga, which came out earlier this year. This version is an upgrade in almost every important way. It's much faster, it has faster processor, faster solid-state storage, and is generally just much more pleasant to use than the original. It's also more expensive. It's a little bit noisier because the fan works harder to keep it cool, and it gets a little bit less battery life. So in some ways, I guess it's not necessarily an upgrade. The backlit keyboard doesn't work anymore either. This version, instead of having function plus escape turning on the backlit keyboard, function plus escape actually slows the fan so it's a little bit more quiet during operation. But generally speaking, the performance improvement, I think, makes it much more worth considering as a portable device. Now, it does sell for $650, $700. It's not necessarily going to appeal to everybody. So let's take a look at some of the things you can do and some of the limitations. So for instance, with this tiny keyboard, typing is not necessarily always going to be the most pleasant experience. Let's go ahead and make sure the keyboard is dim there. This is what it is like to type on a computer this small. Now, some of the reasons why typing can be difficult is A, not quite full-size keys, so I'm sort of typing with these 3 fingers and not using my pinkies very much, and B, we've got really sort of half width and very close together punctuation keys, for instance, half height, home, page up, half height, number buttons and function keys, and the caps lock key is sort of weirdly attached to the A button here. It's something you can get used to, but even at top speed here, I'm a little bit slower when typing on this computer than I am on some others. Another thing that takes a little getting used to is that we've got this optical touch sensor instead of a touchpad. It's usable. You can sort of tap, you can right click and left click, but it's a little bit, you can't move your finger as much as you might want to move. Now, people who are fans of pen input will be pleased to know that you can use a digital pen. It's sold optionally with the m3-2S, like other m3 devices, and this one is actually interchangeable with the version that's available for other m3 tablets. And it allows you to sort of hover and right click and left click and so forth. You can write and draw. I'm not particularly good with pens, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing you that, but I just want to let you know that that is an option, and it works just fine. This model has a slightly different port arrangement than the previous version. There's no micro USB port for charging anymore, just two USB ports, USB Type A, USB Type C, and that one is used for charging. And the charging adapter is a USB Type C power delivery adapter. It's got sort of these prongs that go in and out. It's got a nice braided cable, and of course the reversible USB Type C. Makes it fairly easy to carry around with you. There's a micro HDMI port, so you can use a micro HDMI cable. It's not going to work with a standard size HDMI cable, but micro HDMI to full size HDMI lets you plug in an external display. And there is a micro SD card slot and a headset jack. So in some ways, it's more versatile than a similarly sized smartphone because it's got a QWERTY keyboard and B, it's got a headphone jack. These days, that's getting rarer and rarer to find. In terms of general purpose computing, I ran a bunch of benchmarks. You can find sort of details at liliputing.com or check out the comparison video showing how this sort of stacks up against the original One Mix if you want to sort of see in terms of gaming that this is so much faster. It's kind of ridiculous. But here's just a little multitasking. We've got it's a little sort of tricky to touch this while I'm trying to do the camera work at the same time. Okay, so we've got document open here. We've got a web page open here. Let's open that and then open another window. Let's go to youtube.com/Liliputing. I'm going to go ahead and mute the volume. That is the mute. And play a little video. And while doing this, you can hear the fan in the background, or you could if the microphone was pointed more directly at it, but it's not too bad. Under duress, the fan does get pretty loud, and you can check out another video that I've posted that really gives you a sense of how loud the fan can get. There is this fan control function that allows you to press function and escape to make it run a little bit more quietly at the cost of speed. It's not going to be quite as fast when you're doing those things. But you can see video playback works just fine. I'll turn the volume on. Sort of hold it in a tablet mode, and you know, the audio works. And you can see another video of this device there. So overall, in terms of functionality, it's a pretty versatile little device. Like I mentioned, you can use it for playing games. You can use it for reading. You can use it for a lot of different activities. And I know that I've heard from some people who are like sysadmins who say that this is the sort of device that they like to carry with them, places where, again, they might not know if they're going to need a computer. And it gives them the option of being able to just sort of pull it out on the go and use it in different situations. So we've got a little point and touch game here that I think works reasonably, or really quite nicely. In fact, I find that playing Broken Age on this style of small handheld device is so much more pleasant than on a larger device that I just don't want to really play this game using a keyboard and mouse. I'd much rather use it this way. So that's just one game. In the video comparison with the original One Mix, you can also check out Devil May Cry, which is more of a first-person action game. And you can see that it plays that reasonably well. I've got a couple of other games on here. Haven't run into any real problems. Wi-Fi performance is pretty good. Battery life only really runs around 3 to 4 hours, I found. And you get a little bit less time than that if you're going to be doing some heavy-duty gaming. So as a multimedia machine, as a gaming machine, it's probably not really designed for those things. But the Atom m3-8100Y processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 256 gigabytes of solid-state storage really let you do just about anything on this that you would do with a larger laptop. It just happens to be a device that's small enough to fold up, put in your pocket, carry with you. And because of that small size, you are going to sort of sacrifice certain things. So it does have a noisy fan. It does have short battery life. It's not particularly upgradable. You can open it up and get at the insides and maybe replace the storage, but not necessarily anything else. But overall, it's a nice little machine. Not necessarily going to be the best choice for everybody. It sort of depends on what your needs from a little computer are going to be. If you're looking for a great keyboard, well, this has a mediocre at best keyboard. If you're looking for long battery life, this doesn't have it. If you're looking for a gaming machine, this can play some games, but it's not ideal. And it's not super cheap. It sells for about $650 to $700. This version was sent to me by geekbuying.com, who's currently selling it as of early December 2018 for about $660, I believe. So, would I recommend this as your primary laptop? Not unless you have really tiny hands and don't need a lot of battery life, I suppose. But as a secondary machine, it can go places where other laptops might not, and that makes it a nifty little device. It's also got some competition from other devices in this category. As I mentioned, it's an upgrade to the m3-8100Y from earlier this year. It came out just less than 6 months ago, and this is a rapidly evolving space in a lot of ways. This and the original m3 were also both sort of follow-ups to the GPD Pocket line of devices, which are very similar but don't have the 360-degree hinges. GPD is probably going to be coming out with something new in early 2019. It'll be interesting to see how that competes. If you're looking for something a little bit larger, the Topjoy Falcon has a very similar design. Processor that's not quite as fast, but it's got an 8-inch screen. It's not quite as easy to fit into a pocket, but it's a little bit easier to type on because of the larger screen. So this little 7-inch mini laptop space has gotten really interesting in the last couple of years, and it's kind of nice to see that there are options for people who are looking for this style of device. It's a little different from a Surface Go or other sort of thin and light tablet with a detachable keyboard. It's got the keyboard that's always here on a device that weighs not much more than, or actually about the same as maybe a 10-inch tablet, but it does have this smaller, more portable design. So I like it a lot. I don't know if it's something that I would necessarily spend $650 on for myself, because I find that I have had it in my house for a couple of weeks now, and there are days at a time that I don't use it. And if I were traveling and needed to get real work done, I'd probably want something with a better, more usable keyboard and with a larger screen so I could really see what I'm doing better. But for people who are looking for a light device for maybe just doing one or two things at a time, don't need the bigger screen for multitasking, this could definitely suffice. And you can multitask on it. It's just going to work better if you plug in an external display, most likely. That's a nice view of my lamp. So this is the m3-2S which is available for about $660 as of December 2018. You can find a purchase link in the description of this video. You can find more details about it at liliputing.com. And if you have questions, definitely weigh in on the website. So this is probably my favorite little 7-inch mini laptop that I've tested in 2018, and I've tested a couple of different ones because there are a growing number of them. But I'm really curious to see how this space evolves. If it were something that was feasible for anybody to sell for under $400, I think I would probably be interested in picking one up for myself. At $650, it's as a secondary device, I think it's a little bit of a tougher sell. But given the hardware that is involved in this, I can understand why it sells for $650, $660, or maybe even upward to $700. It does have that 8th generation Intel Core processor. It does have 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of fairly speedy solid-state storage, and overall performance that you would expect from a larger laptop in a pretty compact package. So this is the m3-2S Yoga. This is Brad Linder with Liliputing.